So hi everyone and good afternoon. My name is Damia Shuhada and my role today is facilitator and the literary luminary for our reading circle. So my function as the literary luminary is to find key quotes or interesting points from the reading and highlight them. I will analyze this point and explain why they stand out or why they are important in understanding our topic for today. So, Angie, can you introduce yourself?
So, my name is Angie and I will be connector in this reading circle. The connector is like, my task is to connect what that we discussed in this article to real life experiences, societal trends or other topic you are familiar with. I will help us see how early language learning is relevant in the wider world. So I will give this opportunity to Amira.
So my name is Amira Indina with Daham and you guys can call me Amira. So in this reading circle, I will play as questioner, which is my role is to ask critical questions about the content we read. I should challenge ideas, ask for deeper explanation or explore different angles of the topic. So this one and I will give to Taslim.
So, good afternoon everyone. My name is Taslim Vitamini and you can address me as Taslim. So for today, I would like to play as a summarizer in this reading circle. So as a summarizer, I will summarize all of the main points of the reading and I will also help keep the discussion focused. I also will ensure that everyone understands the core message of what we have.
So thank you everyone for your great introduction. So firstly, as a facilitator, I will read the introduction of the article that we have chosen. This research note has two principal objectives. The first is to examine the latest research findings concerning when is the best time for children to acquire English as a second language and thus become bilingual. The second is to describe how this can be accomplished in a bilingual school setting. To elaborate further on the first objective, at what age should schools admit children into a bilingual program? If the aim is to assist them to reach a level of competency in English that equals or nearly equals the competency level they are currently acquiring in their first language. Included in this research note are key organizational details, including teaching strategies, which are characteristic of bilingual school, which aim to produce bilingual children. First, it is important to clarify the difference between language learning and language acquisition. And what is the difference between being bilingual and being fluent? So I will read the first the first paragraph. Language acquisition or language learning. What is the difference between acquiring a language and learning a language? Acquiring a language refers to an unconscious process as when children acquire their home or first language. This process consists of the parent or other adults communicating with the child through daily interaction at home and in the community on a daily basis, Baker 2006. That process is natural and unconscious and begins at birth, Question 1973. However, recent research reveals that process actually begins in utero in the as yet unborn child, known as L 2013. The acquisition of a child's first language continues when the child enters a school at age 6 or less, formally in a preschool setting, such as a toddler's program or a kindergarten. Learning a a more deliberate process, as when a child enters a bilingual school. In the case of 6-year-old children who are enrolled in a bilingual program, they are not only involved in second language studies, they are also beginning to learn other subjects such as mathematics and social studies in their first language and a second language, Lowry 2015. Thus, acquiring English as a second language is rarely a singular activity. However, in the case of many international schools, English is the medium of instruction. Of course, in many such schools, children have the option of studying formally their own language, which is their first language. In bilingual school, where English is the target second language, normally the national language and English would be the two language of instruction for core subjects such as mathematics and science, Pirun 2016. So, let me pass this to our connectors to give out her point.
So, my first point is acquisition versus learning. Question idea, the acquisition start from birth, even before according to Moon, can be related to how infants naturally pick up their native language at home, hearing it spoken around them. Share example of toddler who seem to learn language effortlessly compared to older children or adults who might struggle to learn a second language. My second point is role of early exposure in bilingualism. Laurie mentioned bilingual school program where young children learn both core subject and language skills. This connects to the idea that learning a language in a bilingual setting helps develop cognitive flexibility. You could bring up international or bilingual schools as example where subjects like math are taught in both the native and target language, reinforcing language learning alongside content learning. My third point is language-rich environment. Reference parent discussion on the use of English as the medium of instruction in many international schools where both languages are present. Compare these two environments where English is not commonly spoken, such as in many Asian countries where children may not have daily exposure to English. This difference impacts language learning, motivation, and opportunities. My fourth point is the role of family and community. Baker mentioned that a child's first language is acquired through daily interaction at home and in the community. You could bring in the importance of community resources such as libraries or culture events that provide exposure to multiple languages, showing how real-world applications support language retention. So,
Thank you so much to our connectors. Next, I will pass this to our questioner, Amira.
Okay, this is the question. Then one thing I wonder about is the potential downside of learning English at a very early age. While the article mentioned cognitive benefits, could there be any negative effect on a child development, such as confusion between languages or delayed speech in their first language? So, this is my answer. While learning English or any language at a young age has many benefits, there can be some challenge. One possible downside is that the child might sometimes mix language, especially if they are learning more than one at the same time. This is called code switching and is normal for bilingual children. It doesn't mean they are confused, but rather that they are still figuring out when to use which language. So that's all from me.
Alright, thank you, our questioner, Amira. Next, I, as the literary luminary, will continue. Yes, I will continue. So, let's begin with the first point of mine, which is what is the difference between acquiring a language and learning a language. The article defines language acquisition as an unconscious process, like how children naturally pick up their first language at home through everyday interaction. Learning a language, on the other hand, is a deliberate and structured process, often happening in a school setting. So this article shares a fascinating claim for Pressure 1973 that says that process is natural and unconscious and begins at birth. It even mentioned more recent research from Moon et al. 2013, which suggests that language acquisition may start even earlier, which is in utero. This idea that language exposure can impact a child before they are even born is quite powerful, emphasizing the value of early exposure to sound and language pattern. This article also moves on to discuss how learning a language become more intentional in a bilingual school setting. Here are the key lines. In the case of 6 years old children enrolled in a bilingual program, they are not only involved in second language studies, but are also beginning to learn other subjects, such as mathematics and social studies in their first language and a second language, Lori 2015. In bilingual programs, children aren't just learning English as a subject, they are also learning other subjects in both their first language and their second language. This makes learning English a part of their daily academic life, not just a separate activity. So the third point from this article that I find quite interesting is that in many international schools, English serves as the primary language of instruction. True students might also have the option to study their first language, according to Piron 2016. In bilingual schools where English is the target school language, normally the national language and English would be the two languages of instruction for core subjects such as mathematics and science. This environment allows children to grow up navigating both languages naturally, applying their second language to everyday subject and activity. So the article raises valuable points about the unique needs of children learning a second language and the benefits of learning an immersive bilingual education. I hope this message sparked new insight for us when we think about how and when children should begin learning English. So next, I will pass this to our summarizer, Aslim.
Okay, for the passages that they had discussed before, so I will do the summarization for that. So from this research note, authored by Jenny Olin and Putri Chivakumjuan, it explores the optimal age for children to begin learning English as a second language and suggests methods for effective bilingual education. So in this passage, it highlights the difference between language acquisition and learning, and it also emphasizing that acquisition is an unconscious, immersive process similar to how children learn their first language. So research supports that starting second language acquisition as early as possible leads to better outcomes such as improved accents and a broader vocabulary. The authors also recommend an immersion-based, holistic approach for bilingual schools where children are exposed to English naturally in their daily environment similar to their first language. So schools also aiming to develop bilingual children should structure their programs to include English in various subjects, integrating it with the other students' native language to support a balanced bilingual experience. So that's the summary that I had done in this message.
Alright, thank you, Tasnim. So we will proceed to our next paragraph, which will be read by Angie.
So I will read this paragraph. Being bilingual of being fluent. It takes time to become really fluent in any language. If by fluent one means speaking, reading and writing at a reasonable good level, only a minority of persons can become very proficient even in their first language, by Lorry 2015. And of course, the same is true for learning a second language. One way to describe the difference between being bilingual and being fluent is in the following quote. It is almost like memorizing your timetable. It can feel like second nature, but many experience forgetting what 7 multiple 8 is. It is 56. Similarly, those who are fluent in Spanish, for example, may need to occasionally refresh themselves on when to use por versus para. Both mean or in English but are used for different situations in Spanish. But being bilingual means you can think in either language easily, and misusing or would be akin to saying something like there are fewer snow in Florida than in Europe. By Norman 2017. A person fluent in English may confuse less and fewer, but a native or true bilingual speaker will not make that mistake. By Norman 2017 makes the point that to bilingual is to have mastered 2 or more languages. Bilingual speakers have the same competency in 2 or more languages as native speakers of those languages. As such, to become true bilingual is not an easy process, but it is possible regarding the matter of being fluent in a second language. It's to say that a person who has developed good communication skills in, say, conversation, or has acquired strong skills in reading or in understanding speaker of a second language. In reality, not many people have the time to acquire high-level skills in all areas of a second language. It should be noted that such speakers are not bilingual. Their second language skills are not as deeply rooted as in the case of bilinguals. Over time, without numerous opportunities to practice or refresh those second language skills, fluency levels become seriously weakened. Children who learn English as a second language will have considerable difficulty in maintaining their English skills level in later years. In order to maintain their earlier skills levels, they will find it necessary to enroll in refresher courses or find opportunities to meet regularly with English speakers. For example, Baker 2006. In many Asian countries, English is still very much a language of the few. This can result in the absence of features such as English signage and street names and English TV and radio programs, for instance. Thus, the surrounding environment in which children live their life is devoid of any reminders that there are other languages besides their own. The author wonder whether this can result in a lack of curiosity about other language and thus a lower motivation to become bilingual, for example.
Thank you again for reading the paragraph for us. So I will continue this with our connector.
So, my first point is fluency versus true bilingualism. Norman described fluency as having functional language skills, but not that. True bilinguals think in both language naturally and intuitively. You correlate this example like someone who has studied a language but still thinks in their language before translating their thought. Contrast this with a bilingual child who switches seamlessly between two languages without needing to think about it. My second point is long-term maintenance of language skills. Becker mentions that children who learn English as a second language may struggle to maintain their English if they lack regular practice. A good connection here is the experience of former language students who lose vocabulary or struggle with grammar when they don't use the language regularly. This can be an example of why bilingual environment or regular language practice are crucial. In my third point is environmental factors and language motivation. In some ASEAN countries, the lack of English language exposure like English, signage, TV or radio limits children's motivation and curiosity to learn it. Connect this to the idea of language rich versus language poor, environments showing how children in places with abundant English language resources are often more motivated and confident in using English. My fourth point is complexity of mastering a language. Lowry comparison between memorizing times table and becoming truly bilingual can be relatable. People often memorize phrases or structure without necessarily gaining deep understanding. You could link these two people who memorize travel phrases but may not feel confident holding a conversation, which differs greatly from the automatically of bilinguals.
Thank you, Angie. Next, I will pass this to our questioner, Amira.
So I would like to give a question about this topic and I will answer the question. So the first question is, what challenges do students face in bilingual programs and how can educators mitigate these challenges? So the answer of this question is, one of the primary challenges students face is the potential for language interference, where elements of one language influence or interfere with the other. This can lead to mistakes in grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary usage. Another challenge is balancing the academic rigor in both languages, especially if one language is not as strong academically. Educators can mitigate these challenges by focusing on language reinforcement techniques, providing different instruction, and creating a supportive learning environment that encourages risk-taking and error correction without fear of fail. Regular assessments can also track progress and adjust strategies as needed. So this second question is, how does the cultural aspect of bilingual education enhance language learning and academic achievement? So the answer is, bilingual education is often deeply connected to cultural identity, and incorporating students' cultural background into the curriculum enriches both language learning and academic achievement. Students who see their culture reflect in the curriculum tend to have higher motivation and a sense of belonging. Furthermore, understanding the cultural context behind a language gives students deeper insight into the language nuances and expression. This cultural competence can enhance students' overall cognitive and social development, making them more empathetic, adaptable in globalized world. So this is
To respect the azan. So thank you so much, Amira, for your points. Next, I will be giving my point as the literary luminary. First of all, this article raises an interesting distinction between being bilingual and being fluent. Here's a passage that stood out to me. It takes time to become really fluent in any language. If by fluent, one means speaking, reading and writing at a reasonably good level, only a minority of persons can become very proficient even in their first language. Glory to such men. This passage reminds us that fluency isn't just about basic communication, it involves strong skills across speaking, reading and writing. The article also uses a memorable comparison likening fluency to memorizing your times table. It can feel like second nature, but many experience forgetting what 7 times 8 is. Next, this article contrasts fluency with bilingualism using examples of common language wisdom. For example, a person fluent in English may confuse less and fewer, but a native or true bilingual speaker would not make that mistake. This distinction shows that while fluency means you are proficient, being bilingual means you are so familiar with both languages that you can think in either one without hesitation. Next, this article notes that it can be difficult for children who learn English as a second language to maintain their skills long term, especially without consistent practice. Here are the key lines that I found. Children who learn English as a second language will have considerably difficulty in maintaining their English skill level in later years. They will find it necessary to enroll in refresher courses or find opportunities to meet regularly with English speakers. This highlights the importance of regular exposure to a language, especially as children grow older and might not have as many opportunities to use English in daily life. Finally, the article discusses how the environment affects motivation. In some Asian countries, English might not be widely used, which could impact how interested children are in learning it. The article states, the surrounding environment in which children lead their lives is devoid of any reminders that there are other languages besides their own. This can result in a lack of curiosity about other languages. Without English language sign, media or daily exposure, children may not feel motivated to learn English. So this passage brings out the complexities of bilingualism, fluency and language retention. Understanding these nuances can give us insight into the challenges and opportunities in early second language learning. That's all from me. I will pass this to the next person, which is our summarizer.
So, for summarize the paragraph, I would say that from the article, it distinguishes between bilingualism and fluency, and also highlighting that while both terms refer to proficiency in a language, it represents different levels of mastery. So for bilingualism, it refers to a native-like command of 2 languages, where a bilingual individual can think, speak, and operate seamlessly in either language without notable errors. This proficiency is deeply ingrained and it is comparable to the competence a native speaker holds in their mother tongue. Fluency, however, while it denotes strong communication skill, does not necessarily involve the same depth, and fluent speakers may comfortably engage in conversation and read or write well, but they might still occasionally make mistakes or need to refresh specific language rules. For example, when someone fluent in Spanish might struggle to remember the correct usage of por and para, which are distinct terms in Spanish or in English. So to achieving true bilingualism is often challenging because it requires continuous and immersive interaction with both languages over a prolonged period. Unlike fluent speakers, bilinguals are less likely to make subtle errors such as confusing less and fewer in English, as their skills are more intuitively embedded. This deeper mastery is what distinguishes bilinguals from those who are merely fluent, and reaching this level demands considerable time, practical and exposure to both languages in diverse settings. And the article also make further notes that fluency alone without continued reinforcement may deteriorate over time. For example, children who learn English as a second language often need sustained practice to maintain their skills. Without regular exposure, such as through refresher courses, conversation with native speakers, or an environment where English is commonly used, they may find their fluency diminished. Also in some regions, particularly in parts of Asia, like Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, English is not widely used, limiting children's opportunities to practice or engage with the language outside of the classroom. So the scarcity of English signage, media and everyday encounters means that English often feels foreign and detached from daily life. So this lack of immersion can reduce motivation and curiosity toward maintaining English skills. And the article also said that it suggests an environment rich in linguistic diversity that may help maintain bilingualism and also support leaders in retaining their skills long term. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Taslim, for the great summarize. Moving to our next paragraph, which is the third paragraph, brain development. Amira, could you read the paragraph for us, please?
Yeah, I will read the third paragraph about brain development. In order to fully grasp the process of language learning, it is useful to examine recent research in brain development. This could shed some light on when is the best time to begin the process of acquiring a second language. Cortula 197, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, assembled scientific findings on how the brain develops in the early life of humans. Brain research data show that in the first month, newborns develop new synaptic connection at the rate of up to 3 billion per second. Everything that a baby hears, sees, feels, tastes, and touches is absorbed by the brain and stored in its memory cell. By 6 to 8 months, according to Cortula's review of research, the baby brain has about 1,000 trillion synaptic connections. Later, the number of connections begins to diminish, and by age 10, half of the connections have died off in the average child. Prior to that, the brain has been like a sponge. It is during this period of brain development that the foundations have been set for thinking, language, vision, aptitudes, and other characteristics. Cotula states, after this stage of development, the windows close, the fundamental architecture of the brain is complete. Cotula 1997, his conclusion underlines the importance of beginning second language learning as soon as possible. Early researchers argued that at this stage, age 11 or 12, a child could more easily understand what teachers are teaching and therefore would more likely seem to make progress more quickly than a younger child. While this may be true, other researchers point out that a child who is is first exposed to a second language at its later stage, level or 12 years of age, will not intrinsically learn in it the same way a younger age child would. These later findings would suggest that early is better. Second language skill may be more authentic and more durable. By Byers, Hanlon, and New Williams, 2030. That is why, according to Cotula, most older second language learners can never properly rule their R's, as Scottish children can no pronounce those, and African click language nor pronounce the X sound of Chinese or the T of English, for example. But this unique language mark can be acquired easily by the very young. In the case of teenagers and adult learners, those sounds are extremely difficult, if not impossible, to produce. More recently, researchers such as Capleton, 2019, 16. I'm sorry, 16. He claims that the window for language learning closed even early as age 6 or 7, and they conclude that the best age to start learning a second language is essentially from birth or as early as possible thereafter. So that's all from me.
Alright, thank you so much, Amira, for that. So we will begin with our connector first.
So, my first point about this is early language acquisition and brain development. Relate question the idea that language learning begins naturally and unconsciously at birth. To example of how infants recognize voice and sound from the womb. This could connect with parents or caretakers who sing or speak to babies in multiple languages and how this early exposure affects language recognition.
Thank you so much, Angie. Next, I will pass this to our questioner, Amira.
Okay, I would like to give question about this point. Wait a second. This is my question about this topic. So the question is, how does early brain development influence the ability to acquire a second language, and why are younger children more adept at achieving native-like proficiency compared to older learners? So the answer is, early brain development is crucial for language acquisition due to the brain's heightened plasticity in the first few years of life. During this time, the brain forms an extensive network of synaptic connections that make it highly receptive to language input, allowing young children to effortlessly absorb new sounds, structures, and vocabulary. As children grow, especially after the age of 10, the brain's plasticity gradually declines, making it more difficult to acquire language with the same level of ease and natural fluency. This is why younger children are often able to achieve native-like proficiency when learning a second language. They can mimic sounds and structures without the need for conscious effort. In contrast, older learners tend to approach language learning more analytically, relying on explicit instruction and memorization, which, while effective, may not lead to the same level of intuitive fluent language use that younger learners can attain. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our questioner, Amira. So I'm the next person in the line, which is literary luminary. So let's begin with the idea that understanding brain development is essential for understanding language learning. The article states that brain research data show that in the first month, humans develop new synaptic connection at the rate up to 3 billion per second. Everything that a baby hears, sees, feels, tastes, and touches is absorbed by the brain and stored in its memory cell. This section highlights the intense activity in baby's brain, where experiences are absorbed rapidly. It suggests that babies are naturally wired for language and learning in this early stage. This article offers compelling insights into the intersection of brain development and language learning, emphasizing that starting young helps establish a solid linguistic foundation that can be difficult to achieve later in life. This finding might give us a deeper understanding of why early exposure to a second language like English is so beneficial. Next, I would like to pass this to our summarizer, Asli.
So to summarize, this paragraph said that from recent research on brain development underscores the critical role of early childhood in second language acquisition. So according to Kutulak, 1997, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, newborns' brains develop at an astounding rate, forming new synaptic connection at a rate of up to 3 billion per second during their first month. Everything that a baby hears, sees, feels, tastes, and touches is absorbed by the brain and stored in its memory cells. By the time a baby reaches from 6 to 8 months, the brain contains about 1,000 trillion synaptic connections. The number of connections begins to decrease as the child grows older. And at the age of 10, approximately half of these connections are no longer present. During this early developmental period, the brain is extremely valuable and capable of absorbing vast amounts of information. This stage lays the foundation of essential abilities like thinking, language, vision, aptitudes, and attitudes. Kutulak also emphasizes that once this stage concludes, the windows for learning close, and the fundamental architecture of the brain becomes set. And this research suggests that the best time to begin second language acquisition is during this early period when the brain is more adaptable. Although some early studies propose that older children around age 11 or 12 may seem to progress more quickly due to their greater understanding of classroom instruction, more recent findings challenge this view. These studies indicate that while older children may grasp concepts more easily, their ability to develop authentic native language skills will be limited compared to younger children. This highlights the importance of early exposure to a second language, which can result in more natural and fluent language skills. As to supporting these findings, Byers, Hanlon, and New Williams 2013 argued that young children have an unparalleled ability to acquire specific language sounds and features that are difficult, if it's not impossible for older learners. For instance, children that can easily master unique sounds such as the roll R in Scottish dialect, the X sound in African Creek languages, or the T sound in English. In contrast, teenagers and adult learners struggle to produce these sounds authentically, often failing to replicate them accurately. This difficulty arises because the brain's ability to process and produce these sounds diminish with age, making it much harder for older learners to acquire the phonetic nuances of a second language. And furthermore, Shackleton 2016 also adds to this body of research, claiming that the window of optimal language learning may close even earlier than previously thought, around the ages of 6 or 7. This research also further underscores the agreement that the best time to begin learning a second language is as early as possible, ideally from birth. During these formative years, the brain is most receptive to learning new languages, and the more exposure a child has to a second language, the more likely they are to develop near native proficiency. So for conclusion, while some may believe that although learners can catch up quickly in a second language, research clearly indicates that the most effective and lasting language skills are acquired when learning begins in early childhood. So the brain's capacity to absorb and retain language during this period is unmatched, making it essential to introduce second language at the earliest possible age to ensure authentic, lasting cognition. So that's all for me for this part.
Thank you so much. I will summarize your Tasnim. So let's move to our last part. Wow, this is so fast. We are already at our last part, which is the fourth paragraph. Bilingualism at an early age. Impact on early cognitive development. I'll pass this to Tasnim to read out the paragraph out loud. Thank you.
So now I will read this paragraph. So the topic is about bilingualism at an early age, impact on early cognitive development. So it said that the possibility that early bilingualism could affect negatively children's language and cognitive development was for many years a concern for parents and educators. In an earlier time, the prevailing views was that bilingualism and second language acquisition early in life made children confused and actually interfered with the development of cognitive functioning. Studies also shown that conclusively that such is not the case. So since 1996, bilingual education is mandated for Singaporean children. They are required to begin school at 6 years old, where the language of instruction is English. In addition to English, children in Singapore are required to learn Chinese, which is called Mandarin, and they also become proficient in their family's language too. And their 3 home languages are recognized, which is Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil, which is the language of South India. Those children whose families speak Malay must study Malay, and those whose families speak Tamil must study Tamil, and these languages are taught by native speakers. The Singapore children are learning to read and write their home language as well as English and Chinese, if these latter 2 languages are not their home languages. So according to the 2015 census, only 36.9% of children come from home where English is the language most often used. Because English is the language of instruction, many non-English speaking parents choose to have their child attend a local preschool. Preschools exist everywhere. Parents are keen to have their children well prepared to pass the compulsory English entrance test, which is administered at the beginning of formal schooling. Thus, at age 6, the majority of Singapore children can understand and speak English at a level commensurate with their age. Singapore Comprehensive Policy on Second Language Learning has been in effect for more than 20 years. There has been no reported evidence of a negative impact on cognitive development among its children. It could be argued that the impact may be actually advantageous. Linguistic competencies of Singaporeans have been increasing. The 2010 census revealed that 79.9% of all Singaporeans were literate in English, and 70.5% were literate in 2 or more languages, from low 2013.
Alright, thank you so much for that. So next, I will pass this to our connector, Hazelina Angie.
So, my first point is shift in perception bilinguals. The article mentions the outdated view that early bilinguals could confuse children or harm cognitive development. Connect this to how social attitudes toward bilingualism have changed. Today, bilingualism is widely celebrated for its cognitive benefits, such as improved memory and problem-solving skills, and is even encouraged by many educational programs worldwide. Second one is Singapore multilingual policy. Singapore bilingual education policy requires children to learn English and their family home language, such as Mandarin, Malay, or Tamil. You could compare this with countries where bilingual education isn't mandated, highlighting how Singapore approach support children in maintaining cultural connection while gaining English proficiency. This connection can open a discussion on the advantages of formal bilingual education from a young age.
Thank you so much for your great explanation, Angie. So, next, I will pass this to our questioner, Amira.
Thank you. So this is the last question from me.
That's last question.
The question is, could learning multiple languages at once hinder their ability to master any of them? So the answer is, in terms of how many languages a child can learn, it really depends on the child and the environment. If a child is exposed to many languages in a supportive, nature setting, they can usually handle learning multiple languages without problems. However, if the languages are not spoken regularly or the child feels overwhelmed, it might slow their progress in mastering any of them. It's important to ensure that the child has enough exposure to each language in order to develop their skill properly. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for the great question and answer, Amira. So, the next is me, which is as the literary luminary. Let's start with a historical view on bilingualism. Here's a passage that captures past concerns. The possibility that early bilingualism could affect negatively children's language and cognitive development was for many years a concern for parents and educators. The prevailing views was that bilingualism and second language acquisition early in life made children confused and actually interfered with the development of cognitive functioning. This passage highlights an early misconception that learning multiple languages could confuse young children and negatively affect their cognitive ability. However, research has since disproved this view, showing no negative cognitive effect and suggesting benefit instead. The next is, the article then describes Singapore's bilingual education policy. Since 1996, bilingual education is mandated for Singaporean children. They are required to begin school at 6 years of age where the language of instruction is English. In addition to English, children in Singapore are required to learn English, learn Chinese, and become proficient in their family language too. This passage highlights Singapore's commitment to bilingualism by introducing English as a primary language of instruction while still promoting home language like Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. The article emphasized that Singaporean children, regardless of their background, are introduced to English early to ensure they have a strong foundation in both English and their home language. So, to wrap up, the article concludes that bilingualism at an early age can have a positive effect on cognitive development, using Singapore as a successful example. Singapore's model shows that with the right approach, children can develop linguistic skill in multiple languages without cognitive problems. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on this passage and the broader topic in bilingualism. Next, I will pass this to our summarizer, Tasnim.
Okay, to summarize all of this that have been discussed from us before. So, okay, from all of those discussion, I would say that there's a concern that early bilingualism could negatively affect children's cognitive and language development due to belief that learning two languages simultaneously might cause confusion. However, studies have since shown that this is not the case. In fact, bilingualism has been shown to have positive effect on cognitive development. So in Singapore, bilingual education has been mandatory since 1996, with children required to begin learning English at age 6. alongside learning Chinese and their family's native language, such as Malay or Tamil. Despite the challenge of learning multiple language, the program has been successful with most students proficient in English by age 6, regardless of their home language. The 2015 census revealed that only 36.9% of children came from English-speaking home. Yet the policy has ensured that a large percentage of children are literate in English, Chinese, and their family language. So over the past 20 years, there has been no evidence suggesting that this bilingual education policy has had a negative impact on cognitive development. So on the contrary, it has contributed to increased linguistic competence among Singaporeans, with 79.9% of the population being literate in English and 70.5% literate in 2 or more languages as per the 2010 census. So it suggests that early bilingualism can be beneficial, not detrimental to cognitive and language development.
Thank you so much, our summarizer, Tasneem, for the great summarization just now. So I would like to thank everyone for your cooperation. So let's end our video now. So we hope that we will get a good mark on this assignment. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Madam Jess.
I love you.
We love you, Madam Jess. We love you.
Bye. See ya.
1, 2, 3.